Yo. I just finished watching SmackDown. I think I was able to stream the first hour on my channel, and then my stuff got taken out. But then they put it back up for like 10 minutes. I mean, 10 minutes after I was I got taken down. So that was cool. I watched as much as I wanted to watch. I watched the what would you call it? I watched the all the way up into the last match. That was gonna be Alistair versus Damien. I didn't care about that. So I'm here, guys. Um, Peacemaker season two, man. That they promised us so much. They gave us nothing. They gave us nothing at all. They gave us Big Belly Burger. That was the only thing they gave us. Yeah, that's the only thing they gave us. The Flash, in the Flash they always go to Big Belly Burger. So that was it. Anyways, I'm ready to get right into the video. Here we go.
Peacemaker Season 2 has been an unusual season that now has had an unusual season finale, and I am torn on it. This finale did not go as I expected, like at all. This video will be my breakdown and review for Peacemaker Season 2 Episode 8, titled Full Nelson. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and become a member in the Noble tier above for early access to videos, or in the King tier for a special shoutout. Thanks to these members for the extra support. Let's get started by going over everything we learned about the DCU. We don't learn many things, but what we do learn is pretty substantial. This episode directly sets up a big storyline in the DCU going forward, and also founds an organization. I'll talk more about what I thought about how they handled it, but this episode's primary concept was to act as setup for two things. Langston Fleury, Judo Master, and Sasha Bordeaux, they all leave Argus, and alongside the 11th Street Kids, form Checkmate, a new independent agency funded, for now, by Vigilante's blood money, with the goal of vaguely making the world a better place. In the comics, Checkmate is a Black Ops government agency created by Amanda Waller. I expected it to be created by Waller in the Waller TV show. Leota, whose name should really go back to being Leota Waller now, is her substitute. Over the years, Checkmate has included many members. Prominent among them were Sasha Bordeaux, Vigilante, Peacemaker, and Judo Master's son, also Judo Master. This team's lineup is certainly true to Checkmate from the comics. The other half of the team is not associated with Checkmate in the comics, but two of them are original characters, and the other two are associated with the Suicide Squad, which is closely related. It's in the same world. On the other hand is Argus, which finds a few alternate dimensions. There's the Candyland dimension full of sexually devious, violent imps. There's a black hole dimension, which Luthor is interested in. There's a zombie dimension. There's a skull spider hellscape. And then finally, they find Salvation, a seemingly empty calm world that they plan on sending metahumans to in order to save the world. However, as we clearly learn, it is not empty. This comes from the comics. In a 2008 comic called Salvation Run, as a part of the countdown to the Final Crisis storyline. In that comic, Waller and Rick Flag lead a campaign using Checkmate and the Suicide Squad to send every supervillain on Earth to another planet. Here, it's Argus instead of Checkmate, just Rick Flag and its senior without Waller, and also it's not another planet, it's another dimension. Eventually, the villains returned and were formed under a villain named Libra to form the Secret Society of Supervillains, acting as key players in the storyline was helping set up Final Crisis, in which Darkseid was the main villain. Not just that, but Salvation is also run by Apocalypse. It could be that this is what they're setting up. Maybe they will use Darkseid after all. This is the most clear idea we've gotten so far as to what the hell this chapter will even be mildly about. There was Argus, the metahumans, there's corporations. We now know that Salvation is going to be a large focus, and the center of that is Rick Flag Sr. Then, maybe a Final Crisis-inspired event is being set up. It would make a lot of sense. This episode will be followed up on in Man of Tomorrow, where I think, based on the events of this episode, we could assume Rick Flag, Salvation, and even Peacemaker will all appear. Maybe the bigger threat is Argus, who sends Superman and Lex both to Salvation, forcing them to team up to escape, or maybe Argus and whatever this world is inhabited by will be that bigger threat. It also seems like there will be a split follow-up between Man of Tomorrow and Waller, as the members of Checkmate, specifically as of now we know that Leota is appearing on Waller, are put into a darker state as they try to find out what happened to Peacemaker, and Waller is given focus. Rick Flag is also actually appearing on Waller. He is definitely definitely being set up as like a really big threat this chapter. He felt borderline evil here, which is so different from Creature Commandos. Otis Berg, Amanda McCoy, Ali Jessup, and Stephen Morey all return here after appearing in Superman, becoming recurring characters in the DCU. They will almost certainly return in Man of Tomorrow, which is seeming to be a jam-packed movie with dozens of characters. Foxy Shazam exists as a real band in this world, which is only notable because of their name. Will they sue Shazam when he debuts? Or maybe he'll be called the Captain. Alright, so all things considered, we learned 2 big things and not much else. Honestly, a bit less than I expected, as this gets me to the review. This episode was kind of underwhelming, to say the very least. After a season of build-up, a few episodes in a row getting shorter and shorter, and feeling this similar feeling that I felt after watching the second to last episode of Creature Commandos, I don't think the finale is going to pay this off. Even if it is a very long episode, I don't know how they can conclude everything in a satisfying way, while also doing what a finale needs to do, like having exciting moments and pay off everything that needs to be paid off. This episode succeeded in some ways, but also unfortunately did fail in others. From the very start, there's a focus on the day on the boat. Now, I know for a fact many people connected to Chris and Amelia's romance more than me. I got many comments saying so, but for me personally, the romance being the crux of the season, what much of the emotional stakes surrounded, and what the finale dedicated a lot of screen time to, did not work too well. I do think they had good chemistry in this very scene. I think the moment on the boat had beautiful cinematography and visuals, and was sweeter than I thought, which was nice. And I'm not mad at them getting together, I just didn't connect to them as much as I would have wanted to, which is important because of how important it is to this season. Also, I can't help but think, in the moment that they're kissing, this was written and directed by James Gunn. This man wrote and then directed his wife kissing another man. I cannot fathom doing something like that. It's wild. Speaking of Gunn, I get how much he loves music, and I think 99% of the time he is literally the very best writer/director user of licensed music, but I cannot help but feel frustrated in an episode that didn't do things I wish they did, that dedicated like multiple minutes of screen time to concerts from his favorite bands. It's like just music videos and filming these guys playing their songs. Not my jam at all. This was genuinely a frustrating thing to watch. If I wanted to watch Foxy Shazam playing a song, there's plenty of music videos on YouTube. Now you might be asking, okay, well then what did you want to see this episode do that it didn't do? Well, there's a few things. I've said it many times before, but it's wild to me how little Peacemaker wore a costume this season, and especially how little he wore his helmet, especially in comparison to season 1, where I genuinely felt like it was one of the season's biggest strengths that these characters always wore their costumes. It felt more like an actual comic book. I thought, surely, this episode would have a moment where he triumphantly re-embraces his Earth 1 home, abandons the Earth 2 suit, and puts on the Peacemaker suit for a fight. No, no helmet, no suit, no fight, nothing. This was disappointing. This was the lack of payoff I was talking about. It just didn't happen. Then Chris is kidnapped and sent to Salvation, again without his suit. I think Gunn could have written it in a way where he retrieves his suit and helmet, puts it on, but then is kidnapped and is therefore Peacemaker on Salvation rather than just Chris Smith. He never re-embraces the Peacemaker identity or the costume on a show called Peacemaker. And while Chris Smith, I think, has all the same depth and emotion as Peacemaker and vice versa, the one thing missing is that Chris is just nowhere near as fun to watch, just like how Adrian is a lot more fun to watch when he's in the vigilante suit. That said, I did really like this episode's focus on Chris's relationship with Death. This was the big thing that was paid off very well. In essence, there are a bunch of scenes all leading into the motel scene, which was a true highlight of the season. I like the moment of Chris calling himself the Angel of Death, Eagly being depressed is heartbreaking, and Adrian and Adebayo's talk is really funny. Even more heartbreaking though was Leota finally accepting her separation from her wife. The acting here was fantastic from both parties. Kia's actress does a lot with a very little amount of screen time. The writing was great, and generally speaking, it was a genuinely heartbreaking moment that I guess cements Leota as going back to being Leota Waller, right? She must be. It would make no sense for her to still go by Adebayo, except for the fact that her friends call her Ads. Economos trying to distract Happerson is cringy and difficult to watch, but funny, and leads directly to the motel scene. Hell yeah to Adrian being suited up. There was a shift for Vigilante going from never being suited up to always being suited up, setup and I love it. Peacemaker should have done the same thing, and he also steals the show as per usual, as him tackling and tasing Chris absolutely killed me. Have I mentioned how much I love Vigilante? The motel scene is one of the show's best. It expertly pays off all the surrounded by death themes of the season in a very well written scene where Leota specifically shined. Danielle Brooks' acting here is phenomenal. Her speech, honestly, and if I'm being honest, it made me cry. And this was actually expanded by James Gunn in the Peacemaker podcast. Leota tells Chris that he's big and stupid, but she knows that he loves her and can't say that about anyone else in the world. That was how he felt about his father growing up. It was already emotional and powerful, but that just makes it so much more. This scene did a great job at bringing Chris out of that dark place he was in, and did a great job at setting up Checkmate. This was easily my favorite moment of the episode. Checkmate's creation was also set up by Sasha leaving Argus, for which we need to back up to near the beginning. Argus explores the multiverse looking for a habitable world for some sort of unknown reason. As always, the QUC itself is visually spectacular, while this time there's also the interesting visuals of the alternate world, which we unfortunately saw almost all of in the trailers. The trailers really did not need to show us anything from the finale. I don't understand why they did. It was so unnecessary. Either way, the other worlds look great, and this entire storyline worked for what it was trying to do. Flurry's lines and Judo Master in his suit in another suit is funny. The exploration of the alternate worlds becomes more and more tense, the fates of the agents become more and more brutal, and Rick Flag felt more and more nefarious. Wow, did this episode make Flag seem devilishly evil, not batting an eye about the deaths and mutilations of the agents like at all, celebrating in fact. He was so disgusting here, it's honestly hard to reconcile that these two are the same character, his heroic portrayal in Creature Commandos and his evil portrayal in the season finale of Peacemaker. It also doesn't help that they don't look the same either. White hair and a yellow shirt really would have helped. At least a yellow shirt. I don't get why at least that they didn't do. As for Sasha, her turn was swift but understandable. Her seeing Flag's descent into being more and more despicable, culminating in the Salvation reveal, it makes sense that she'd want to leave an organization that would want to get rid of her kind, but also the fact that it was all in a montage made it feel really quick. I don't recall there being any setup at all for Sasha turning on Argus this season. This is a minor complaint though, as I like that she did. Her becoming a member of Checkmate is great. It's easily what I associate her the most with. Maybe they'll be hired by Bruce Wayne and she'll be his bodyguard, like she was in the comics. Alright, so this all leads to the two big universe-changing elements of this episode. First is Salvation. This is a really cool idea for a concept for the overarching plot. I'll have to read the comic, but I gotta say this is certainly different from anything done before. The MCU, the Arrowverse, the DCEU, Gunn is doing something unique. I liked the reveal, I liked how they did it, I liked where this is going. However, the episode, the finale of a season that desperately needed a finale, focusing entirely on setting up other projects in the future rather than telling its own self-contained ending, is not satisfying for Peacemaker Season 2. Seasons end on cliffhangers and set up future seasons all the time, but I think it's different when it's setting up other projects and not future seasons of this show. Gunn has said that every project should stand on their own. I think sequels are exceptions to this because obviously, but in essence, you should be able to watch Peacemaker Season 1 and Peacemaker Season 2 without needing to watch anything else. This season references other projects like Creature Commandos and more specifically Superman, but you don't need to watch Superman to watch Peacemaker. Now, if this episode isn't followed up on in a third season, that's not a complete standalone project. This is antithetical to what Gunn has said he wants the projects to be like. Maybe even Man of Tomorrow will now feel like you have to watch Peacemaker Season 2. I don't typically mind this and even appreciate universe interconnectivity, but I think there's a way to do it that doesn't make it feel like that they sacrifice the season's individuality for the sake of a chapter. This season is simply incomplete. Not satisfied with the ending, nor am I satisfied with the finale. As for Checkmate, I had the exact same thought. I love it. Love the lineup. Never liked the 11th Street Kids name, so I'm glad that I can now call them Checkmates. Love the concept. Looking forward to seeing it in the future, but it's not a plot line that feels worthy of a season finale's focus. It should be the ending of the season finale, but not what the entire season finale leads up to. Finally, the actual ending, and again, it's the same thing. I love this. Super interesting direction and really intriguing as to what this would look like. I think I'm less excited since he doesn't have his suit or helmet, but the concept of Chris surviving the wild is interesting. But again, this is setup and a cliffhanger. What particularly bothers me is that concept that this is the final season of Peacemaker. A cliffhanger is just not how a show should end, even if it is followed up on in a different project. Man, this sucks. After all the hype that I heard from James Gunn saying that Peacemaker Season 2 is like his favorite thing that he's ever made, and that he used the finale specifically to pitch the DCU to David Zaslav, I cannot tell you how ready I was to release a video called something along the lines of the Peacemaker Season 2 finale is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Unfortunately, it just isn't. This is far off from what my expectations were. It fails as a season finale and doesn't complement the rest of the season too well. Some things paid off well, there's some fantastic acting and writing, some top tier comedy, and I am genuinely excited for what it sets up. But as a finale itself, this isn't it. It is the Creature Commandos finale all over again. Gunn is now 1-3 on satisfying season finales. He should really go back to how he tapped into the season finale writing of season 1 and do that next time. This is already the lowest rated episode of Peacemaker on IMDb. I get it, but I think that's only because people put way more weight on finales than not. It's not the worst episode of the season, but it is the most disappointing. 7 out of 10.
Yeah, it might be the worst. I think the first episode was the best episode because they had the Justice Gang in it. That's just how I feel. Thank y'all for watching. I'm gonna see y'all.